what's happening right now is much more than a police issue or a crime issue. This is a community issue, and there's trauma in our communities, and we need to heal it. Police officers also know this, and they feel it too. The deaths of young people are causing pain throughout this community, and it goes throughout the ranks. This trauma extends past the victims and their families. It's felt throughout all of our communities, no matter what neighborhood you live in, no matter what high school you go to or which church you attend. You're feeling this fear, and I understand that. Lately, victims have been school-aged. We need to come together to do more to promote equitable access and opportunities for all of our youth. Earlier this summer, I had the opportunity to attend one of our summer Earn and Learns in Beltsuber, and a 15-year-old girl said something to me that is beyond wisdom. It's something that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. She said, "You can't make choices for me. I'll make my own choices in life, but you can provide me opportunities." And we've been working to do that. Through My Brother's Keeper, we've been working with those that are at the most risk, young African American males, to provide opportunity. We have increased our summer of Earn and Learn by 10 times, from taking it from less than 200 to over 2,000 kids who had the opportunity to have a job this past summer. We made our pools free, increased meals during the summer and after school. We're increasing after school programs. We've provided opportunities that weren't there 2 years ago to be able to give kids a chance. But we realize we have to do much more. And part of that is working not only with kids that are at risk, but with the community at large, and working hand in hand with our police bureau. The actions that are going to be taken by the police bureau will address the crime. The opportunity to keep those kids from ever getting into crime is really a call across all boards, from the city to our police, to our faith-based leaders, to our community leaders. And that is what we start.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank you all for coming this afternoon. I just want to follow up a little bit on the mayor's words about the correlation, if you will, between services and opportunities and violence, because there really is a nexus, and it's that point of connection that we're going to be working on as we start moving forward, implementing our model of focused deterrence, or what we described for you on August 4th. We had our press conferences, our model of group violence intervention. A lot of that's going to involve getting together with the moral voice of the community, those people in the lives of the young people who are engaged in this pattern of violence, and helping them to make better choices. Communicating to the loved ones of these individuals, we love you, we care about you, but the violence needs to stop, and having that unified message come from both police, service providers, members of their community that they care about. So looking for a uniform moral voice for the community, and then focused enforcement for those who make bad choices. Okay. The purpose for this particular press conference is to simply provide a little context and perspective to what we've been seeing, the violence we've been experiencing. Again, on August 4th, we did a very detailed press conference where we unveiled our web-based violence report. You'll find, and you'll still find there, a 5-year analysis of violent crime in the city of Pittsburgh in great detail. I urge you to go back to look at that. You'll also find an analysis of the year-to-date from that date. That website is going to be updated every month as the new data becomes available. I just looked a little while ago, and my staff was in the process of uploading the July data. So if you go there, you'll see the data has been updated from the last. But in the meantime, what we want to do here today is just set the context and help allay some fears and maybe break up some urban legends that may be developing here. In short, and I'm going to bring up Commander Larry Scarrato in a few moments, he's going to talk more about the specifics of the trends and the investigations, but in terms of the broader perspective, please understand that from the statistical standpoint, the number of homicides and shootings and violent crime, we are on a general par with our 5-year average. That being on a general par puts us down somewhat from last year's averages. If you compare we in the city of Pittsburgh to other cities our size and larger, you'll see that we are not experiencing the significant growth in violent crime that's occurring in these other cities. Okay, now this is not intended to minimize the seriousness of the problem we face. It's still a problem. Okay, it's still an all-hands-on-deck emergency when we have this many young people dying, but the reality is it is not an epidemic of violence that is outside of the norm of this city. Okay, we're going to be talking to you today about some of the methodologies we are putting in place to improve our capacity to reduce violence. So the data we unfolded on the August 4th website is one effort toward that, using data to measure and more precisely define the areas and the individuals driving the violence. Commander Scarrato talked to you during that last press conference about the way we've adjusted and changed our investigative structure to be more responsive and effective in these investigations. Assistant Chief Schubert talked to you last time, and we'll talk more this time about some of our focused deterrence efforts in the communities where the shootings are occurred, and share with you an anecdotal success story or two. So we have a lot of things going on in place in terms of improving our game, leveraging the best practices of our profession. Next week, myself and 30 of my closest friends here from Pittsburgh, to include police officers, members of the criminal justice system, elected officials, city residents, will be traveling to John Jay College to learn from the best more details about how this focused deterrence model has worked in other cities, and learn from other communities that have implemented these strategies. We'll learn from those for whom it worked well, and for those with whom it didn't work as well, we'll find out what they would do differently the next time. And when we come back, we will continue to move forward in earnest. My goal would be that we will fully implement this strategy on or about the first of the year. If with a little luck, it may be quicker than that. Okay, but in the meantime, that hasn't stopped us from improving every single thing that we know we can identify here to hone our game. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Commander Larry Scarrato, our Major Crimes Commander, who will talk to you about the investigations and some of the more details of the trend.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, or good afternoon. Chief McClay asked me to speak relative to context and what we're seeing in investigations on our violent crimes. And the reality of it is, I feel very confident saying our communities are very safe. Our communities are very safe in the manner of Part 1 crimes, relative to robbery, relative to rape, burglary. Our communities are very at risk in those communities of color where we have high instances of gun violence. And to provide context, I think you have to look at victimology. And when we talk about victimology, we have 72% of our murder victims, 72% of our murder victims the motive is either attributed to retaliation, drugs, and or robbery. And that is a significant number. That is a significant number because of the association that our victims keep. Now, and I said this the last time, this is not a blame game. Loss of life is tragic. Loss of life matters regardless of the victim's participation in crime. And that will always remain clear. However, we understand that our victims' behaviors or the associations that they keep put them at extreme risk. And with that activity increases their risk to be victim of violent crime. So we looked at it just across the board. We know we have an 18% decrease in homicides from 2015 to 2014. However, that's not good enough because we see an increase in non-fatal shootings across the city. So homicide isn't our only barometer of violence. It's immeasurable. However, we still have work to do to ensure that that non-fatal shooting, those gunshots that you're hearing in your neighborhoods at night, those are diminished as well. But relative to that, that's what my position was, and that was what I was asked to provide. You know, we talk about gun violence versus gun safety. I know a question came up relative to the age of our victims. We have not seen an increase in younger victims. It remains the same. There were 9 victims last year under the age of 20. There were 9 victims to this point this year under the age of 20. It gets our attention when you hear a child, a young teen become victim of murder. However, all of our murders get the due attention that they deserve, regardless of age. And that is important for you to understand as we move forward and how we're going to investigate these cases. Okay? Thank you.
How you doing? Real quick, as the chief was saying when we met the last time at this press conference, in the zones, we're the boots on the ground. We're the ones that are responding to the shots fired calls, the shootings, the homicides. All of the zones, all 6, take this very seriously. When something happens, it happens to all of us. And as Commander Serrato was saying, doesn't matter who gets killed, it's one too many. It does affect our officers a lot more when it is a younger person or a child. It's something that's difficult to deal with, as it is difficult to deal with for the members of the community where it happens. When we talked last time, we talked about some things we're doing in the zones to make it a lot better on our part, on our response, that there's more accountability on all of us. The officers always do a great job, but we recognize there's always opportunities to improve on what we do. And I think that's been working since we've implemented the violent crime response and reduction protocol. And with that, if you remember, I told you there's 3 levels. Level 1 being that there's a threat of violence based on credible information, and that triggers each zone to act immediately. Act of violence occurred, but it's unknown who did it, is our level 2 response. Everybody gets that. When it happens, it's immediate. Level 3, an act or acts of violence that continually cause fear or harm, and there's information that it suggests that the violence is retaliatory in nature, and something is going to occur imminently. We recognize that the first 48 hours in the zones on our side, take out investigation or GVI, that it's critical time for us. And when I say that, not just for trying to help solve the case, which is something we desperately try to assist, but it's working with the community. It's that community engagement. It's getting out there, knocking on the doors where this is occurring, letting them know that we care, here's what we got, we need your help. Everything we need to do to help calm those fears is what we're doing. And then you have that teamwork approach where we're working with whether it's group violence intervention, intelligence, whatnot, working together as one team to get that information back and forth and hopefully to arrest the person who committed the violation. The goals that we have with that protocol, one is to interrupt the violence, and that's through swift action, utilizing resources, whether internally from the zone or calling resources from other zones or Special Deployment Division, Narcotics and Vice, Intelligence, working together as one group. Utilizing those resources for targeted enforcement, using good data. That's one thing the chief and the mayor have been helping to bring forward, that we have that information, that we can better target where we think something may occur, and looking at places where it did occur, and looking at where people who may be involved will be. So all that information helps us to put our plan together to be successful in the field. Can't say enough about the information sharing, and internally and with the community. I mean, that's paramount. Getting that information out to them and getting information that they may have back to the people who need it. But more importantly, talking to them and letting them know what's going on in their community, so they're not just hearing what's on the news, they're not just hearing what's on the street, they hear from us, and that's important. Calming the fears of the community through the visibility, through that door knocking, through showing them that we support them, and providing a sense of security in the communities for the people that are affected by this violence. You don't know where it's going to happen. We don't know where it's going to happen. I think that's probably one of the biggest fears of people in the community, is whether it's retaliatory or not, that it happens and there could be innocent people who are close by. That's something we take very seriously within the department, but I can speak of in each zone. We take that very seriously, that we can help mitigate that and prevent it, and so that's something that's close to us. Using, as I said, the intelligence-driven data to focus our efforts better, so we can police better, we can police smarter out in the field. The chief talked about some of the success stories. There are so many out there, and we're trying to do our best every day when we see something that occurs where the officers go above and beyond. Whether it's a robbery, a burglary, shooting, a homicide, whatnot, to give them credit for the work they're doing and let them know that we appreciate what they're doing. And I could stand up here all day and tell you the different stories between Zone 1 all the way to Zone 6, that the things that the officers are doing on a daily basis with great arrest. But some of the bigger success stories, probably one of the biggest one is Zone 1. There's been a number of homicides, a number of shootings, a number of shots fired calls in the Marshall Shadeland and Mexican War Streets. And in, I think it was probably mid-July, Commander Bickerstaff and her staff, working with intelligence, working with narcotics and vice, working with Commander Serrato and investigations, put together a plan. And they didn't just look at it and say, hey, we're going to go out and saturate the area and hopefully we'll disrupt what's occurring. They looked at who were their most violent offenders in those communities, and they targeted their enforcement and visibility in those communities and put the word out. And one of the incidents, I think it was in early August, where some of the officers who were doing surveillance up in Shadeland, Marshall Shadeland, were sitting in a car watching, and they see a male who is from the Mexican War Streets up in that area, out of place. So they're watching him, and out pops somebody from Marshall Shadeland involved in illegal activity up there, pulls out a firearm and attempts to shoot the other person. There's a misfire. The officers end up chasing both, getting them, and recovering 3 weapons. They weren't just there in a random place. They looked at the information they had, and they were there when it occurred, and they made the arrest. They took guns off the street. They're, of the people that they identified as the most violent offenders, since they started this, they arrested 9, put them in jail, recovered a number of weapons, drugs, cash. But they went another step. They went up there, and people who were on the list who happened to be in jail, talking to the probation and parole, looking at other cases to try to keep them in jail. It's things like that help improve the communities, to make people feel safer. When there's a court case coming up, or they're in an arrest and they get arraigned, going down to the magistrate who's doing the arraignment and letting them truly know the background of this person. So hopefully we can get a higher bond, keep them in there, and keep them off the streets from causing more violence. They've been very successful in the Mexican War Street, where they had a number of shots fired call in July and August. There have been none in September. So we look at that as a positive thing. And we'll continue on it, and we'll continue on to Marshall Shadeland and do everything we can to keep making it smaller and smaller and smaller. This wouldn't be possible, though, without the engagement from the community. The information we get, people calling 911. And that leads me into Hazelwood. They were having a number of shootings earlier this year, and then there was 2 last month. And Commander Herman there looked at all the information, came up with a good strategy, used his resources, put additional officers down there. And we knew it was coming from the area of Johnston and Flowers, and somebody called 911 and said that there was a group of males on the city steps, blocking city steps, and those officers were right there when that call came in. And they ended up going to the scene, detaining them, and recovered 2 firearms and arrested a juvenile male. So since that started, his response, there hasn't been any more violence since those arrests, and they're going to keep going at it. But we need people to feel that we're out, let them know that we're out there, so they truly feel that we care about them, and we take this very seriously, and we're going to do everything to mitigate what's going on in the communities, so they trust us enough to call 911. And that's something we're finding throughout the zones. This Zone 4 and Zone 1 are perfect examples of people coming forward and calling and getting the information out to us. So that's where we're at. We're going to continue to do it, and I can't talk more about the teamwork and the information sharing that's going on within the Pittsburgh Police, with the communities, and other agencies that are helping us. So that's where we're at on the operations side.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. No, and I just have to thank Chief Schubert and echo the outstanding police work that's being done day in and day out here in the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. Extremely responsive, very, very capable investigative work, adding new tools to the skill set and starting to make a dent. Okay, it's not time for celebration. It just gives us a hint that the methodology we're looking at has us on the right course, and we're going to continue to try to improve our capacity and earn the respect of those in the communities to come to trust us enough to have those calls come more frequently, for people to have enough confidence in us that they trust us enough to be willing to come forward to help us with these cases. So we're doing a lot of interesting things. We're embracing every best practice we can identify that we think will help with this particular problem. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. We could do everything by the book. We could do everything perfectly and still not do this alone. Okay, we can only successfully do this if we as members of a Pittsburgh community come together and recognize our interdependence in addressing the many issues that fuel the violence. I want to give my hats off and thanks to our partners with BPEP. They had a press conference yesterday and a call to action to members of the community. Let's come together. Let's help. Let's help. This is a community crisis. We're all in this together. And I have to tell you, in my now 1 year here, it's incredibly gratifying to have the storyline change from, Chief, we're watching you, we're going to hold you accountable, to, Chief, what do you need and how can we help you succeed? And so I think we're poised to do some good things here in Pittsburgh. Our national initiative partners who are here on the ground this week doing the work with respect to that initiative are giving me reinforcing positive messages as well. So we're on a good course. We've got a lot of work yet to do, but we're deeply and passionately committed to that work, because the reality is any loss of human life is unacceptable. It takes a toll on the victims and the victims' families, of course, but it's a tragedy with respect to the actors and the actors' families as well. Nobody wins in this game, and as Chief Schubert and the mayor mentioned, it's taking a human toll on my officers as well. So we can't be successful in collectively addressing this fast enough for me, because the human impact is simply unacceptable. So we're committed to doing everything we can.